Thank you for joining Think, Build, Launch podcast. This program is an extension of Marl Startup Studio. Marl Startup Studio was started to support students and first-time founders of all ages while they're at the idea stage of their startup. We believe there are so many innovative ideas in our community that get missed simply because people do not have the structure to take their idea into an actionable plan. And that is what we do. As we get started today, I just wanted to say that I hope I see everyone at Marl on Main, at the Mercantile on Main downtown in Sibley Square, November 4th from 5:30 to 7:30. We're building a bridge between the Frederick Douglass Susan B. Anthony Bridge to the Golden Gate, representing economic inclusion and increased deal flow with three very specific goals: helping optimize the 800,000 student talent pool that we have in our area, help get additional funding to the existing startup community, and finally continue to get Rochester on the map as a robust entrepreneurial ecosystem. To that end today, our guests are Sertl Optics founder and inventor Zach Niazi and Chief Operating Officer Ian Gagar. What makes Sertl Optics such a great guest for Think, Build, Launch is that it has both of them have educational roots here at the University of Rochester and Rochester Institute of Technology. And also they have been remarkably active in the startup ecosystem across upstate New York, including Syracuse and Rochester. And we'll get right into that. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Zach and Ian, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
So let's go ahead and start with you, Zach. Can you please briefly give us the Sertl Optics origin story?
Yeah, sure. So Sertl Optics got started when I was a student back in college and initially asking the question, why if Google has cameras on top of cars mapping the planet, why can't I strap on a virtual reality headset like an Oculus Rift and be able to walk around Venice, Italy, or the pyramids of Egypt, not with one frame every street block like Google gives you, but being able to see an immersive 60 frame per second experience. And I was fortunate to have an advisor at the time who worked on the initial cameras for Google and explained to me that they have this issue called parallax and that you need to stitch the imagery together. And sometimes you can find it in Google's imagery when you look at telephone poles and you'll see a little misalignment in the cable and the imagery. It turns out that in order to go from photos to 60 frame per second video, you basically need to fix these perspective issues, but it takes typically stitching experts that do it by hand, and it's a completely unscalable process. So the thought about mapping the world, it's just unscalable when you take into consideration the parallax issue. So Sertl Optics really got started to solve that problem and make it easy and accessible to capture 360-degree video without having to worry about the perspective errors.
That's incredible. And, you know, I think I was initially going to start talking about the team, but I'm looking at in 2019, you won the Luminate Awards. In 2021, you were part of the Genius New York cohort, and you most recently are part of Pepperdine Most Fundable Companies 2022, which actually just happened 2 weeks ago. Ian, can you talk about what it's like to be part of these different ecosystems and how do you prepare for participating in all of these different opportunities?
Yeah, so all of them were really great opportunities. The first two were accelerators, and what was really fantastic about those is it's not so much preparing to be part of that, but they're preparing you to go out and do things afterwards. So both those programs, we came in, we were at different stages, but the programs really fit with the stage we were at the time. But, helping us, brush up our business plan, get our financials in order. And they were really prepping us to go out and talk to people in the ecosystem, and then went out and made those connections. That's very true of the Genius New York program, which was a more abbreviated program. The first phase was only 3 months, and it was just back-to-back meetings of potential investors, manufacturers, ecosystem partners to really help you, get all those connections that you could really thrive. And then with the most fundable companies, that was fantastic because, we were really breaking out of our upstate New York ecosystem here to connect with people on the West Coast. And, it was so fantastic when we were there to be able to run into some people also from the Rochester area. And we had that Rochester connection. I know they talk about it a lot with U of R alumni and, making those new connections there so that we can start to expand and grow that ecosystem.
That's fantastic. What is it, having had so much experience building a winning story, what are some things that you can help? A lot of our community are at the ideation stage, just beginning to put together the pitch deck and the conversation. So I'd love from each of you to share some really good advice from the earlier days on getting that idea to the next tractionable moment.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is really huge, and all startups, no matter what stage you are, need to keep in mind is that there's kind of two different phases of your life as a startup, and you have to be very grounded, but at the same time you have to be extremely ambitious. So, and you have to pitch, this is what I'm doing today, and I'm very focused, but I'm also very aspirational, and I have a plan for where I want to go in 3 or 5 years that is big enough to make it valuable to invest in me. But if you're not focused today and you're doing too many things, you're not going to get investment either. So really the biggest piece of advice that I think we got, and, it's an old adage here, is, you got to learn to walk before you can run. And that was very important for us as a company. We had to get some traction, get some revenue, start actually providing value, and then scale that up with something that, is really going to be our own product that we can sell in the future. That's
great. What would you like to weigh in on that, Zach?
Yeah, I think that in terms of crafting a winning pitch, a piece of feedback I got from a pitch coach is to start out by telling a story. And I can say that since I started doing that, the quality of pitches and the engagement I've gotten from the audience has really changed. Rather than just saying, here's a problem, here's a solution, tell the problem through the lens of a story. Figure out some insight, something that happened to you, and relate back to the audience, because people really connect the stories. We're wired that way. Back when we were, cavemen and women, we'd get around the campfire and tell stories. That 10,000-year-old culture is still hard-grained. It's like Maya Angelou says, people don't remember the specifics of what you say. They remember how you made them feel. So the first 30 seconds of a pitch, work on telling a story and try to communicate feeling rather than just the specifics and the words. And then you get into the details later after you get that audience connection.
So in addition to being like chief executive officer, I think what you're inviting everyone to do is also to be chief storytelling officer, which is, I think, a really neat crossing the chasm, that you've done, is being an engineer that has learned how to also tell a beautiful and compelling narrative. I'm also interested, mentorship is such an important part of being successful. Both of you have alluded to having been part of some really great mentorship programs. Individually, I would really love to hear maybe the best piece of insight or perspective that you got during the first year of your growth. Because that's really where a lot of our audience is, in that first couple, first ideation to strategy.
Yeah, I think that in year one, the best piece of advice I got was just get started from someone that started their company, and people would constantly ask them, what did you do to get started? And they said, I went to the hardware store and picked up a sign or picked up this, and literally just got started. And I think the best asset you have in year one is that you don't know how difficult the road is going to be. And I think that's actually a good thing, because if you know all of the roadblocks, all the stumbling blocks that you're going to face, and all the challenges, a lot of people might just never get started because it could look like this insurmountable road. But really, the journey of 10,000 footsteps begins with a single step. And so just focus on your first few steps. You're going to encounter problems, but as you encounter them, you're going to learn to solve them and iterate. And don't get stuck on the same problem multiple times. Try to be adaptable and try to learn from your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. The trick is, how quickly can you error correct and get better at solving those mistakes and learning from them as you grow on your founder journey.
Ian.
Yeah, I think one of the best pieces of advice we got early on was about focusing on people first. You're a tech startup, but you really got to focus on people. And I think you always have to focus on your people and invest in your people. But those first few hires are so crucial. And, while we're looking for these really deep experts, we're also looking for people that are really broad in what they can do. Because when you only have 3, 4, 5 people at a company, everyone's got to do a little bit of everything. So, finding and identifying those people that could come in and be so valuable to us and then help us grow and had the networks to help us grow was a really key part of our first year.
That's incredible. Is there different advice then? The neatest thing is that you guys have made it past year 5. And, there's always those statistics that say about getting past the first 3 years are significant in order to continue to grow. What is the advice that you have received that you're actually acting on now that you're more mature?
Yeah, I think that one of the best pieces of advice that we got recently is more around managing a team. So in year 5, it's really about team building, team growth. And even in a small organization, we're 15 people at the moment. Even in a small organization, it's important to get your processes nailed down and to make sure that everyone knows what their swimming lanes are so that people don't basically step on each other's toes. And so a great piece of advice we got this year is to use this tool called RASI. And RASI stands for responsibilities. Basically on any task, who is responsible for that task? Who needs to be advised? That's the A. Who needs to be advised about the task? S stands for support. Who needs to support the task? And I stands for include. Who needs to be included and basically be made aware? So I think that trying to take that concept of RASI and apply it to all the different things that you work on as a startup can really help you figure out what are the swim lanes here and make sure that everyone knows who's responsible for what.
Great. Ian?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to the original piece of advice I was talking there about focus. And, it's really important to focus even as you become a bigger company. The day-to-day tasks for Zach and I and the number of people who need our attention constantly, it's been really important for us to, prioritize the highest value activities and, outsource the other, important activities that, just aren't the ones that for us to do that other people can do. And then, know what things that you just have to drop. This isn't essential to do right now and, put it on a back burner or totally drop it. So really trying to focus on the things that are going to provide the most value to the company in every moment. There's only 24 hours in the day, and we can only work about 23 of them. So we got to be doing as much as we can with those hours.
So I noticed that synergy is an important core value of the culture. How has synergy come to life in the workings of Sertl Optics?
Yeah, synergy is, super huge, not just internally, but like kind of for our external philosophy here. Internally, there's a lot of crossover between disciplines. There's a lot of cooperation and working together on things. But then whenever we're looking at partners, we're looking, or having outside conversations, we're looking for people that we can work together with and, build something better together. And that kind of goes back to ecosystem as well. And, just being synergistic with our ecosystem.
There's so many, the bench strength of your team. I think was it 200 patents are
200
part of
plus, yeah.
200 plus patents, as well as that you have 12 patents awarded and pending in your actual technology. And it's the first 360 non-stitch camera on the planet. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we're the only ones that, do this wide field of view imagery capture the way that we do it. And that's, protected by our patents there, the 3 that have been awarded and the other 9, which will hopefully be awarded soon.
It's exciting to have you here in Rochester and also to have you acknowledged at Pepperdine, really kind of helping our footprint, get national recognition, which is really fantastic. You've been listening to Zach Niazi and Ian Gauger from Sertl Optics. You can follow Sertl Optics on Twitter, as well as find Sertl Optics on LinkedIn, and also www.sertloptics.com. I'd like to thank all of you for joining our program today. I'd also like to thank Startup Grind Rochester, Upstate Venture Connect, Upstate Capital of New York, NextCore, RIT, and University of Rochester for your partnership with the Marl Startup Studio and in this wonderful collaboration for the tipping point in entrepreneurship that we're having here in Rochester. I'd also like to thank our producer, Scott Fitzgerald, here at Rockvox Studio in Rochester, New York. If you have an idea and want to know more about our program, connect with me at jennifer@marlaccelerator.com. Please subscribe to our program, and we'll continue to provide information and inspiration about taking your idea from a concept to a business. This is Jennifer Sertl. Thanks for joining us.